Hi, my name is Jane, and I'd like to welcome you to my new channel. Many of you will know me from my yarn community channel, which is Scraptastic Yarns. This channel, though, is called SewScraptastic. Now, I am a big believer that throughout our lives we are given scraps. All kinds of scraps, and that we can make those into something beautiful, and that is what this channel is about, as well as my sewing journey. I will tell you a little bit about myself. I have been a long-time sewer, crocheter, knitter, and sewing has always been a passion of mine. When I had 4 children, and my first babies were a set of twins. And when they were born, I began sewing for them. Sewing all kinds of items for them, even clear up until they got into school, elementary school, to the point that when I divorced my first husband, I was very reliant on that sewing and babysitting for a living for quite some time. Although I was also going to nursing school at the same time that all this was going on. I am a retired RN, and quite frankly, I'm busier now than I ever was when I was working full time. But when my twins, they were boys, were in elementary school, I was making all of their clothing, all of their shorts, shirts, and then when their sister came along, I was making all of her dresses, short outfits, those kind of things. I was sewing for friends of mine because we were all plus size, and I'm still a plus size. But we would find a pattern in the stores. You know, back then it was Alco because there wasn't any Walmart. Walmart was just becoming in its own. But we would find a shirt that we liked, and I would mimic that shirt. I would take my shirt apart and make a pattern to make multiples of those. And luckily we had a fabric store in our town of Roswell, New Mexico, way back then, called Hancock Fabrics. And Hancock Fabrics had some great deals on fabrics, so I purchased a lot of fabrics, mostly cottons and linens and some chambray and a few other types. But mostly it was cotton, linens, terry cloth, because terry cloth was a big thing for shirts for kids back then, you know. So I was making shirts for my boys, everything but jeans. I didn't sew jeans because I just wasn't very good at that part of it. All I had was a little brother sewing machine. Just a basic, you know, had maybe 15 stitches. So, you know, I was kind of sewing on that. But some of the teachers in the school realized that there were a lot of kids, because we had a lot of migrants and yes, illegals who came in, that they were in need of clothing as well. So some of the teachers would buy fabric for me, bring that to me, and I would create shirts for the kids to wear to school. So I did a lot of that, sewing for myself and my kids and some friends, you know, those kind of things. And then once I graduated from nursing school, I stepped away from sewing and hadn't been back to sewing for probably 20 years or more when I stepped back into the sewing world. And when I started my sewing, I was basically making handbags for myself, for friends. I was also making makeup bags, and out of that I continued to sew, making those kind of things. And then I expanded, opened up an Etsy shop under the name of Jane Wynn Designs, where I was making project bags for knitters and crocheters, handbags, makeup bags, Right now it's mostly been project bags for knitters, sewers, those kind of things. But along the way, I realized I had never learned to sew with knits. And that is something I have always wanted to learn and to do, because there are some beautiful knits out there. And being a plus size girl, many times I can't get clothing in the regular stores. So I wanted to create fashions for myself, whether they were from patterns or something of my own design. So I have re-jumped back into the apparel side of it, and I am going to take you along on my journey on learning to sew with knits. I have 2 machines. Well, I actually have 3 machines. I have one that is at our local senior center where we normally would quilt on Fridays, but of course the pandemic happened. So we haven't been meeting in our senior center, and that sewing machine is at the firehouse in the back room with the rest of the quilting supplies for those of us that quilted on Fridays. And we would quilt things for Meals on Wheels, for people in the community, local nursing homes, Alzheimer's centers, those kind of things. So I've been a long time quilter for probably the past 20 years. So, along with that, when the pandemic hit, I put away making project bags because there was such a great need for masks. For not only the public, for many of our workers in the health field, first responders, so I started making masks. I've continued to make masks, but for about a year, that was my sole income. Was making masks to sell to the public at a fairly decent price. I was a little lower than a lot of people. And I'm still making masks. I'm not sure that will ever end. I'm hoping it will someday, but we'll see how it goes. But along the way, I started making the makeup bags, project bags again, and as well as making concealed carry handbags, crossbody bags. So I continue to enjoy making those types of bags, but I have yet to step into the apparel for myself. So that is what this channel is going to be about, the journey for me learning to make apparel again for myself. Most of it will be knit fabrics, some chambray, some ponte, some, different types of fabrics that are more of a knit type fabric and flowing. Now, most of my machines, I have the one brother that's at the firehouse, and I have 2 Berninas. Both of the Bernina machines that I have are embroidery machines as well. One is a 590. I do enjoy the embroidery with it. It's a smaller machine, but then the one that's up here in my sewing room is an 880, and it is my other car. That is what I call it for those people who know me well, because Berninas are pretty expensive machines. Now, with this second stimulus that came, I decided I needed a serger because of the knit that I wanted to do, and I wanted to not only use a sewing machine, but to learn to use a serger. And as many of you know, Bernina now has two top-of-the-line sergers that have air threading available. Do I have one? No, not yet. Since they are the first in the models that they have started, I'm very reluctant to buy the first ever of any machines. So what I did do is I bought a Brother 1034 DX serger. And because I know eventually I will move up to that Bernina once they've worked out all the kinks and everything with it. So that is my ultimate goal eventually, is to work myself up to a Bernina. In the meantime, I'm going to learn to use this serger, and I'm going to take you along on that journey as well. Now, my grandmother was a long-time quilter, and most of her quilts are tops. She did do a few finish some of her quilts, to which she gave all of her grandkids quilts, finished quilts, with the exception, and most of the great-grandbabies, with the exception of my son and daughter, who did not receive quilts, and I believe my sister's 2 girls did not receive quilts. However, I have since made quilts for those, as well as quilts for my son's youngest son, youngest daughter. And like I said, I enjoy the quilting. But my Nana had a lot of tops that she had never made. And those that got passed on to my cousin in Texas, Jerry Lynn. Hi. And so we decided, since I was the quilter in the family, that she would send me those quilts to finish. Now, I have a big, huge tote that is just chock filled with tops that need to be finished. These are from the 80s, early 90s, and to mid-90s. So I have a lot of quilts to finish. Now, my cousin and I discussed what we would do with these quilts. We decided that they would go to charities. And a lot of those charities are going to be to cancer, to a hospice home for cancer in our area, which is called the Gatehouse. And the last 10 days of your life, you can go to the Gatehouse, to help give the family time to do whatever they need to do, as well as for those people who do not choose to die at home. So I will be finishing a lot of those quilts that will go to the Gatehouse. They will go to Alzheimer's centers, to nursing homes, Meals on Wheels recipients, as well as those in the community that need them, and as well as a project that was brought to my attention through the prayer shawl ministry that I work with, called the Sleep Project. Now, the Sleep Project was originally started to provide beds for children with cancer who did not have beds. I know it is hard to believe that there are children in this world, in the United States, that don't have their own beds. Well, the local group in our area expanded that to where it's not just children with cancer, but they expanded it to any child without a bed. So what this is volunteers get together, they find supplies to make beds, build beds, and then what I plan to do is to finish those quilt tops for them to go to the Sleep Project as bed covering for these beds. So that is my goal over the next couple of years with this channel. I hope you'll stay, and I hope you'll enjoy what I am doing and what I'm showing you. I would show you my sewing room, but quite honestly, it is a disaster. I'll be real honest there. I kind of put away sewing back in December. My husband wound up in the emergency room, and we discovered that he had a stage 4 cancer with metastases to his lung and liver. And so life changed a little bit for me, and has for a while. But we are continuing, to do the chemo every 2 weeks. Numbers are looking great. When he first started out with his chemo, the numbers were 3,500 plus for his tumor markers. And as of Tuesday of this past week, on the 23rd of March, his numbers were down to 330.4, I believe. So the chemo's working, it's doing the job, and we look forward to having a few more years together in that respect. But I'm not going to show you this sewing room because I need a lot of work in it, and that is what I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. I may show you some of that as I continue to work in the sewing room. But my sewing room is really a second bedroom, and it's not a full bedroom. It's what I call a 3/4 bedroom. So you could probably get a twin-size bed and a dresser in here. So it isn't all that large. But I hope you'll stay for the journey, and I look forward to showing you the things that I am making not only for myself, but for you, the consumer. And I look forward to sharing this journey with you on SewScraptastic.